more than having talent, the character is what determines an entrepreneur that would make it or sometimes will struggle. What we are doing now was impossible. Was impossible. This is like owning your own media. This was impossible. I used to work for the media. For you to get a television appearance where you are speaking about your brand, what?
What do you think are the 3 things young people should be focusing on in order to be in a better position in the future?
That is the first thing that you must do. Find that person and start asking those questions. It will save you a lot of pain. The good thing about character is that it can be developed. Yeah, but it's not something that you wake up and you have character, you know. So there's something that changed my life is there's things that are called principles. Principles don't change. They always stay the same. The principles are basically laws.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 3rd episode of ABC, where we talk everything art, business, and culture. Today on our episode, we have an exciting guest, somebody who is very good at business. He owns a sneaker brand that is doing very great in the market. Today, I want to give you a 2-minute introduction to Themba. How are you doing, Khatman?
I'm good, man. And you?
I'm doing fantastic. Otherwise, before we start this conversation, thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy, but you took the time, VAYA, to be here to put in your insight in the business industry so that a lot of people can learn. So I'm just hoping to see this conversation is going to educate a lot of people who are trying to be in your position. So maybe we can start this conversation. I know everybody asked you who you are and you've over answered that question, but let me just try to get you to dive deep into what it takes to be an entrepreneur like you. So maybe let's start it with that. What does it really take to become an entrepreneur and in the scale that you're in?
Yeah, that's a very loaded question. There's no one answer, to answer it. It's a combination of a lot of things. What I've learned in my journey is that everything adds up to the whole thing. So meaning, basically, there's different parts of experiences that have added to who I am now. So that on its own, for an example, I'll make an example. There's sometimes you start a business and you fail because of the marketing, and then you learn, okay, so this is what I haven't been doing right in terms of marketing. And then sometimes you start and you fail because you don't do proper finances, and you learn this is what needs to be done. So basically, there's a lot of elements into becoming a really good entrepreneur. What I would say is it's very advisable to educate yourself in the beginning, in all the different elements. You don't have to be a master or an expert in all of them, but just have a little bit of knowledge on how marketing works, how the admin of a business works, how your bookkeeping, your finances, all of that stuff. You just educate yourself so that when you start a business, at least you have an idea of all the different elements that are involved in creating, a good entrepreneur.
That's very interesting. You're talking a lot of education. Do you think every entrepreneur needs to start in the education first, or we just need to dive in and then you figure it out in the process?
No, you definitely need to start in the education. You have to invest. You have to, with everything in life, it's what you put in, is what you're going to get out. So everything that you see most of the times with people succeeding, you have those exceptional cases where there's an exception to the rule, where somebody succeeds because they come from a certain family, or they either are connected to certain business people, or those kind of situations. But in most cases, what I've observed is what you seeing somebody being successful, it's a result of what they've put in, meaning what they've put in them, the knowledge, the information. So you have to make the time to educate yourself before you can get into it. And it will be reflected when you get into business. The knowledge that you don't know will be the one that will block your progress. So for me, I always make an example of a car. You know, a car, everybody knows a car. So meaning everybody knows business, you know, they know it's buy for a rent, sell for two. So everybody knows the basic information. This is a car, this is a door, this is a steering wheel. But you can't get in there based on that information and think you can drive it. You have to invest the time to learn what are the techniques of driving the car, how to get into different gears and all of that. So it's the same with entrepreneurship. You may know that, okay, if I buy a t-shirt and I brand it and I sell it, I bought it for 150 and I sold it for 300, that's business. But that's not the be all and all. You have to learn other tricks that are involved in the game.
That's very interesting. And we all know that learning sometimes comes in very painful, like spending the amount of hours learning. And sometimes learning is practical. And when it's practical, you fail and you have to redo it again. And it's very painful. I want to come in with, do you think failure is necessary? And if yes, what perspective should entrepreneurs take in terms of failure in a way? How should they look at it?
You know, I'll answer it from the perspective of we grow up in a society that from a young age, our parents are trying to protect us from pain, so don't go there, you'll fall. Don't do that. You know, your whole experience as a child, it's your parents advising you against things that will make you fail or that will bring pain in your life. So what happens with us, we have this psychological makeup that says everything that we must do, we must avoid pain at all costs. That's why it's very hard for people to accept that failure is part of the process, because you kind of like try ways to shield yourself from pain because you've been conditioned to avoid pain. So I would say that we have to find a new way of teaching our kids. I know that's a big ask, but we have to find a new way of teaching our kids to also be aware that it's also part of your life. You will feel pain. There is no other way. You will feel pain. And the purpose of the pain is what's important. It's that it will teach you a lesson, and that lesson you'll be able to implement and get a better result. So I then would say, yes, pain is very necessary. Failure is necessary. You have to go through all of those failing situations or moments in your life where you are learning lessons and then you're able to do better.
Wow, that's so dope. I just assume, Muguti, if you are a dope entrepreneur at this point, there's a lot of failures that you have encountered. Yeah. If you talk about all your failures, we're going to spend the whole podcast. Can you please tell me about one failure that you have encountered that you feel like has contributed to making you who you are today?
The biggest one, it comes to mind all the time, it has to be the reason why you're doing what you're doing. For me, that is like key, because a lot of frustration comes from having the wrong reason to do things, or not being enlightened enough to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So for me, it boils down to purpose. So what I would say in my life, the reason I failed so many times is because I was chasing things. I wasn't chasing purpose. I was looking at how much money I can make in this adventure, what advantages I can get, or if I can make enough, I can buy this car and I can have this house. So I was always chasing, things, and it was never about the purpose. But once I discovered that I should always be aligning myself to why I'm here and the purpose of my existence, then all of these things kind of fall into place, because now I know, okay, actually I'm here to serve people with my gift. And what is my gift? I have an ability to create things that motivate people and inspire people. So it could be, right now it's a sneaker, but I have that ability that even if I were to do another product, it always comes out as an inspirational sort of product that if somebody sees it, they are amazed, or it brings joy to them, or it excites them. So I have an ability to create products that really invoke a certain type of emotion out of people. So that is my purpose. And I found, okay, if I can just align myself every time whenever I do a business, look at something that will align with that purpose, then I will always succeed. So naturally, when I got into sneakers, I had it in myself that because of the eye and the perception that I have, whatever that I'm going to deliver, the sneaker that I'm going to deliver, it's going to have that type of effect on people because it aligns with the purpose that I have. So I think that's the biggest for me, that purpose was supposed to be the first thing that I learned about before I got into business. That why are you doing this, and where are you talented at? What is your purpose here? Once I could answer those questions, if I had answered them very early, I would have avoided a lot of mistakes. But because then it was, can I make, how much money can I make? How many cars can I have, and all of that stuff. I ended up failing a lot of times.
Wow. There's always this thing, Nina, I'm a hot money. You're always saying that if I learned this thing earlier, I would have been here. So what do you think are the 3 things young people should be focusing on in order to be in a better position in the future?
I think if I look at my own experience, I would say, I can't blame my parents, because the knowledge that I needed, they didn't have at the time as well. So basically, it's like asking someone to teach you how to drive, and they've also never driven a car. So it gets to a situation where you are both frustrating each other because you're advising each other on things that you don't know. So I think what needs to happen from the beginning, you need to seek mentors, good mentors in your life, people that have done some of the things that you also want to, not necessarily exactly what you want to do, but they are in the same path. So that saves you a lot of time, and saves you a lot of pain, and saves you a lot of, money lost and frustration, stress, depression. If you could get from the beginning good mentors, like it could be somebody that's successful in your area, in your hood, or it could be somebody that you can reach out to on social media these days, but it saves you a lot of time to have someone that you could ask questions to. I think for me, as a young person, I would say that is the first thing that you must do. Find that person and start asking those questions. It will save you a lot of pain. And then in terms of if it's 3, okay, I haven't really thought of them in that way, but I would say the first one for me is mentorship. Yeah.
Wow, that's very important. Mentorship, ekasi. What comes into mind, I'm assuming that it's very hard to find somebody who's successful, especially in the most disadvantaged townships in South Africa or in the world in a way. So how does somebody in the township, ekasi, who feels like they have entrepreneurial traits, find a mentor in a way?
Okay, so in my case, I grew up on hip hop. My whole entire life I was into hip hop. So in a way, the people that I was listening to became my mentors. Good or bad. So I would say there were good parts of influence in terms of hip hop, and there were bad parts. But what I learned is you do not have to have a physical mentor sometimes. It doesn't have to be physical, like a person where you speak to. It could be somebody that you could study, and just dedicate a lot of time into studying in terms of how they've done it. And in my case, I had like a couple of people that I've studied. I really just sat down. I would watch their videos. I would look for their content everywhere, books, whatever, and just study them and, check, so that's how he did this. And, I just had that mindset. So when you are ekasi vele, you are right in saying it's very hard to get those kind of people. So I would say, because we live in the greatest era of humanity where we have access to information, just pick someone that you think, okay, this person aligns to what I do. So for an example with VAYA, I'll make an example with VAYA. We made sure that every single thing that we've done from the day when we started, we documented it online. We always posting about it. So meaning that it makes it easier. If somebody wants to get into sneakers, you can just go through the timeline and see, that's how they started. Or they used to sell here, do activations here, do that. So I think these days, because of the access to information, use the internet as your resource. Make sure that you study that person, and don't study like on a surface level. There's people that study people on a surface level where it's just what everybody knows about Jay-Z, but you need to go deeper and understand what made the content that he has become, the things that, happened in his life that made him who he is, and try and see what kind of lessons you can learn from that.
Wow. I wanna off ramp a bit. Né?
Yeah.
A lot of people get in entrepreneurship because of money. We all know that entrepreneurship, you just do your own thing and make money in a way. Do you think entrepreneurship is a talent matter, or anybody can be an entrepreneur?
I think the character, it's a character thing for me. Your character has to, you have to have that character of an entrepreneur. Not more than having talent. The character is what determines an entrepreneur that would make it or sometimes will struggle. So the good thing about character is that it can be developed. Yeah, but it's not something that you wake up and you have character, you know. So it's something that you can develop over time. So what I've found is, if you want to develop your character, it really requires like an effort, you know, to take time and say, okay, so for an example, what is character? Character is basically your value system that you follow, and your value comes from principles. So what kind of principles do you need to have as a person in order for you to have the demeanor or the temperament of a successful entrepreneur? So I know, for an example, I've run businesses and I've had to manage people. There are certain character traits that you need to have. For an example, you can't be emotional at certain things, you know, you can't take things personally. So you have to be able to separate business and friendship and pleasure, all of those things. So you need to develop that type of character so that you are able to succeed. So for me, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, start with the development of your character. Understand what kind of characteristics that make up a successful entrepreneur, and then study those characteristics. So there's something that changed my life is there's things that are called principles. Principles don't change. They always stay the same. The principles are basically laws. So if you jump down out of this building right now, you're going to fall. It's a gravity. It's a principle. So there are principles in terms of entrepreneurship that also don't change. Certain actions that if you take, they produce the same results all the time. But if you don't know those principles, you then become frustrated and you might even think, okay, entrepreneurship is not for me. But only to find that you are violating certain principles that are very important in entrepreneurship. Going back to the car. So it doesn't matter how motivated you are and, you know, how many books you've read and, you know, how enthusiastic you are. And even if you get into a car and you start singing nicely, the car will not move. It moves because of a principle. You have to put the key in, you have to start it, put it in gear, and then it moves. Unless you apply that principle, even if you're a good person or you're a bad person, it doesn't matter. What matters is the principle works either way. So a car can be driven by any gender, any race, because a car doesn't discriminate. The principle of driving a car doesn't discriminate against women, against men, against anybody. It's just one principle. So the business, when you take that same thing into business, it's the same thing. So there are certain principles in business that they are the same. Where you come from doesn't matter. What color you are, how much money you have. But if you practice those principles, you are bound to get the same results as well.
Wow. And we were learning about this, reading the wealth, the principles of wealth, the rules of wealth.
Yes.
And it was saying the same thing about the fact that money can come to anybody. You just need to apply the principles. Doesn't matter if you're good or you're bad or whatever. Wow.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Do you think the township is structured to enable entrepreneurs to win at a big scale?
I don't think so. When I think about it, if you look at how the township was designed, if you had to go through the history of how it was designed, it really wasn't designed for entrepreneurs as such. It was designed for the labor force. So it came as a result of, industries coming up in different areas. Let's say, make an example, in Gauteng, different industries came up and you had to get labor force from the rural areas and people settled. And then they had to build pockets of townships so that those townships can feed those industries with labor. So just based on that, it wasn't designed for entrepreneurs. Now, when you look at it structurally, how it was designed and how it didn't have certain resources and all of that stuff. You can tell mindset wise, it just programs you into saying you have to get out of the township and look for a job in town. So I'm just going back in a psychological way in history, that you went to school in that township, but the end goal was for you to move out and get a job somewhere. So success is not in the township, success is somewhere else. But I do think that now that is changing, because we are taking the lemons and we are turning them into lemonade, because we are now realizing, okay, you know what, we are here anyway. We might as well make the best of this situation. Yeah. So we are now taking the word VAYA is actual, I think it's actually Spanish. Wow. And we took that word, we made it, we took it and we adapted it into our own situation, and we said, when you say VAYA, you're saying go in the township. So we are doing the same thing with everything. We took it all-star Converse, and we took it and we made it our own. 3-5, and we made it 2-5, and then we made it our own, and we adapted it to Pantsula dance. So that's what we are doing. We were given these bad conditions and bad environments, but we are taking that same thing, that those bad stuff that we've been giving, we are taking it and we are adapting it into our situation and changing it and making it something that we can use to succeed.
Wow, that's very dope. And you just answered a question I wanted to ask, but that was the first point. I wanted to ask, what do you think are practical steps we can take in order to better the township in a way?
I think we live in an era of the internet, as I said before. And what I've realized is that everywhere, when you go, let me make an example. When you go on holiday, if right now you were to say, I want to go to Zanzibar, when you get to Zanzibar, what the first thing that the people in Zanzibar will do, they will tell you about their culture, because that's what they're going to sell to you. They're going to tell you, hey, we've got this unique tree that produces, this kind of grapes, and we've got this unique drink that we drink here. Here when we greet each other, we do this and that. That's what they will sell you. And that's what will fascinate you. Wow, I didn't know you could do that and what. But basically, what it tells you is that whatever that you have, there's someone out there that will find it unique and will find it, valuable. So I would say we have to look into our own surroundings and say, okay, what is it that's there that we can take to the world? What is it it could be a story. It could be how we use language. It could be how we use music, how we use, visuals and all that. But we always have to look at what can we take and sell to the world practically. What is it about the township? So for me, I looked at sneakers and I saw, growing up, sneakers were something that was very important to us as young men. You felt a certain way when you wore a certain sneaker. Just that sign, that Nike sign on your sneaker just changed your mood. You thought, hey, I've got a dope sneaker. Yeah. So I saw that and I saw how important it was to us, and I felt, Uguti, there is a perspective that we have to share with the world. We can also have ideas in terms of how sneakers should look and also export it to the world. So I would say it starts there for me to say, this is practically what can we, in my surrounding, what can I take and show or sell it to the world?
Wow. What can we export to the world?
Yes.
And in terms of exporting to the world, it speaks to business in a way and knowing how to brand your stuff, because you can sell the most lamest thing in your hood, but somewhere you branded it so dope. So practical ways again, how does entrepreneurs brand their unique things in a way?
Yeah, branding is important. Branding is so important. Let me just say, for me, the biggest inspiration in terms of branding is God. God for me is the biggest inspiration. Why? Because I've never seen in terms of humans someone who's as creative as God. God has something unique that he does. He knows how to marry function and beauty. So something, for an example, something that we use for looking, it's something that also God uses for attraction. Something that, to make an extreme example, something that you use to go into the toilet with, is something that can be looked at as, oh, wow, you know.
Yeah.
But actually, when you think of the function and you try to compare the two, you're like, okay, so actually we are attracted to something that somebody uses for that purpose. But that tells you how powerful God is, because nobody ever looks at it like that, you know. But that's the function of it. So basically that informs my branding, that yes, function is very important in terms of a product. You can have a camera or a mic, and the mic is for transmitting the voice and the audio into the speaker, whatever. But how it looks is as important as well, because how it looks also visually inspires somebody, or, you know, has a type of impact on how somebody views things. So the sneakers are for protecting your feet against the cold, against the heat, against, you know, the stones on the road. That's the function. You know, so the function is just protecting your feet and making sure that they're comfortable. But there's also the beauty, you know. So if you are able to marry the two, that somebody can wear something that is as comfortable as VAYA, but at the same time the looks are amazing, then that's a winner. So I would say when it comes to branding, that's the function for me for branding things. I'm talking branding, not in the branding, because branding actually is perception, is the perception of what the brand, when you see something, what do you think about it? So I'm talking about the looks, the packaging, sure, the packaging of it. So I would say when it comes to how it looks and how it's packaged, it will also influence the perception that a person has about it. Because when they see it, certain thoughts will come up because of how it looks. And then the perception is now formed. This thing is very nice, or it's like this, it's like that. So I would say branding is very important. Educate yourself about what it is. Most people think branding is a logo and the colors and all of that, but actually it's the perception of a product. So for an example, when you think of VAYA, it has to spring into your mind that, oh, it's from Ekas, you know? It's all about ambition, and it's a brand that speaks about inspiration, going for it. It should tell you, it should spring an image of the founder in mind. Okay, Themba, he comes from Katlehong, but the perception is way more important than actually the product itself, because the perception will sell it. So yeah, I would say invest a lot of time in understanding what branding is and how it works, and you will create, you know, great products.
Wow. Hey, I think in terms of branding, we need to create like a whole episode just talking about branding, because I really love the tactics and the in-depth of the things, techniques and everything. But I'm really curious about another thing, consumerism, ekasi, in a way. There's a lot of entrepreneurs. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're building a business, you're building it because there's a problem you see. And now what happens is you end up building a business for your community. But now when you live in ekasi, low distribution of income, a lot of people are not working jobs that can give them the advantage of buying expensive stuff. So I just want to ask, in terms of consumerism, ekasi, what do you think about entrepreneurs that are building businesses to sell to people in the township?
Yeah, I think those things that you've just mentioned, you know, they big factors in terms of you building a product that could sell or, you know, make a sort of impact. When I think about consumers, for me, because I grew up my whole life, ekasi, and but something that I noticed. But I noticed it later in life, you know, is that I would wake up endlini, use the Colgate, make tea using your Joko, your sugar, you know, your milk, and then, you know, take a bath, wear clothes, maybe sometimes sit and watch TV a bit before I go to school, whatever. But what I didn't notice was, because of how we grew up in the township, we never even questioned that who creates these things that we use so much, you know? So there's a lot of people that are saying, what can I do? What can I sell in the township? Because there's no money. But everyone in the township uses Colgate in the morning. It uses toothpaste. But who in the township is coming up with a branded toothpaste that he can sell to all of those households? I mean, every household uses toothpaste. But we are thinking of these, you know, we are thinking of these products that are, but I'm saying everybody in the township, when a ShopRite comes into the township, they first do, your research to calculate how many people live in that area. And then they will say, okay, so there's 20,000 people that are in Spruitview. So 20,000 people in Spruitview, they all have to use toothpaste every month. So that means just on toothpaste alone, we've got 20,000 sales. And then they will say, okay, so they use sunflower oil. So 20,000 people are going to buy sunflower oil. Or they use sugar. So 20,000 people are going to buy. And then they calculate that money and they say, okay, we're going to be able to cover expenses, salaries, and also make profit.
Wow.
But we don't, I think we grew up in a township. We don't think in that way. And if we start thinking like that, to say, okay, I grew up in a township, what would happen to me when I woke up? What kind of things did I use until the end of my day? And you'd realize how much money is there and how many markets we have untapped. Remember now there's like sort of a revolution of, using our own products. But have we tapped into real products that people are using on a daily basis to a point where we can make money out of them?
Wow, that's so dope. That's so dope. Before we leave the topic of township economy, maybe I might ask you, what do you think about local brands? Because in the for marketing mix, there's product, the pricing, whatever. But the most important one is product. What do you think about local brands and their association to quality?
Okay, we've had to deal with that a lot of times, where somebody says, but because it's South African, because the Pumekasi, then it's not quality. But I think the only way we can defeat that stereotype is for us to produce quality products. I do think that there is some sort of mentality sometimes that you find with people that, people have to understand. Because I'm out here sekas, they have to understand. Understand within a month, and that's not fair, because you yourself don't understand if somebody can give you a product of a lower quality. So I would say for us to win that war in terms of quality, we have to invest. We have to invest in our products. It takes a lot of money, takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it in the end, because the perception that will be created. For an example, I've had people that bought the sneaker when we first came out. And whenever I meet them, they always tell me the same thing. Gucci, the sneaker is still intact. Like to this day.
To interrupt you, even the ones you gave us, like, I think it was last year.
Yes,
they're still fresh.
They're still fresh, and the quality is very good. So it means I've won someone for life, because whatever product I'm going to release, they have the same expectation. He releases quality products. I know from the one that I bought the first time. So you'd rather do yourself a favor and start with quality anyway, so that you build a track record of quality throughout your whole product run.
Wow, that's super dope. Quality is essentially important. The township economy, I'm very fascinated about it. This is the last question directed from it. If you were the president of South Africa, what projects or initiatives would you put forth in order to better the township?
I think the first thing I would push for a producer culture, if someone would say, meaning that I would push for people to manufacture their own stuff. Like really push that as the mandate. So that means overhauling the whole education system and saying, let's have people that are graduating out of a mindset of producing, manufacturing, creating things for themselves. Because, the most shocking thing, and I'll make an example of this, because someone once told me that, you see, there's you can actually build your own power station. Ne? You can actually build your own power station that can power up a whole township, and it wouldn't cost you $1 million or anything like that. It wouldn't cost you like a lot of money, just basically. And I was like, but what do you mean? And he says, if people knew their power, they wouldn't be complaining, because what they would do is they would come together as a community and say, let's build our own power station. That will generate our own power. You can actually generate your own power. And then he made a practical example. He says, if those people can come together and say, there's 10,000 of us. Let's all donate 500 rands towards a fund to build that power station. It would be done in a month. It would be just one donation, and in a month it could be built, and it could be done. Right now, a lot of people, white people, have been asking the government to give them licenses to do their own self-power generation. I don't think anyone in the township, maybe there is someone out there, but I haven't had a lot of people saying we are also applying for that license so we can generate our own power. But it's that type of mindset that I would want to instill if I were to get an opportunity to say, let's start a mindset of generating our own stuff and, making our own stuff so that we don't have to be dependent. Right now, we are just growing up in a culture of dependency on someone to create a job for you, dependence on someone to pay for your education, dependence on someone to just help you out and succeed. But actually, we have to be self-reliant. And to be self-reliant, it needs to be instilled from a young age that you need to make your own clothes, you need to make your own food, you need to make and if you have that mindset, anytime you see something like the Chinese, anytime they see something that's being innovated or new, they sit down and say, how was it made? To a point right now, I know right now America is saying we are no longer going to share our technology with China, because China, once you share your technology with them, the following month they've created something similar and now it's their own. They no longer rely on you. Imagine if we have that type of mentality. That means anything that we come across, we would sit down and say, can we create it for ourselves? And I think that would make us progress.
Wow, that's super dope. Do you think the township is ever going to come to that place?
I think so. I think once there is one or two people that have that type of idea. Remember, you see how small a seed is. One seed is a seed is probably this size, right? But a seed is actually carrying a forest. Yeah. So inside that tiny seed, there's a forest. Because that seed, if you plant it and you water it, it grows and it will produce other seeds. And you take those seeds and you plant them and you water it, produce other trees. So one seed is actually carrying a forest. So if you have one person that has that idea, within that person, you have millions of other people. So actually, when you look at a man, we are both men, you are actually carrying a lot of children. And those children are carrying children as well. So you are carrying generations. So if you make the right decisions with your life, it means all of the generations that are going to come out of you are going to change the world. So it just needs you. So I just think that if the idea is now planted in one person, then it will start spreading, and eventually it will take over.
Yeah. And that's some church things. You're gonna hear that from church. Otherwise, I'm very interested into globalization in a way. The fact that you can go anywhere where there's no war or anything and open a business. So this brings me to a topic, Amakula. What's your perspective of Amakula in a way?
If anyone comes into your territory and beats you at your own game, my mentality is always one. I want to learn how they did it. I really want to learn how they did it. More than hating the person or despising them or having all sorts of stereotypes about them, I'm fascinated by the fact, how did they do it? And can we duplicate the same thing? So what I think of them is we need to learn. We need to sit down and say, what kind of environment do they come from that makes them not afraid to go into a township where they don't understand the language of the area and they don't understand the culture, but yet they come in after a few months, they are able to control the economy of that area. What kind of mindset did they grow up with? What kind of thinking do they have? How can we learn from that thinking? Because when you make someone like that into an enemy, then you're missing the opportunity of learning. So I would say, my own idea, if I see someone like that, when I look at Chinese, when I look at, Indians, when I look at anybody that comes and builds something great and succeeds in it, I'm always on that mindset, Choguti. But how can I learn the same skill? So I think that's what we need to adopt. That's the mentality we need to adopt. If you follow history, if we have to go deep, you'd understand that Africans are actually the first ones to lead civilization. So Egypt is in Africa and it led civilization, not this current Egypt. I'm talking ancient Kemet. It led in mathematics, it led in architecture, it led in medicine, in all of those things. And you know what happens? Greeks came. And when the Greeks came to Africa, they didn't come in and look at Africans or despise them or look at them as enemies. When they first came to learn. And they learned, they took the knowledge, they went back to Europe, they implemented some of the stuffs. The Romans came, they learned, they took the knowledge, they implemented some of the stuff. It's what the Chinese do. It's what the Japanese do. It's what the Indians are doing. So we ourselves, I think that's what we should be doing. We should be saying, okay, how do Chinese get to where they are? How do the Americans get to where they are? How do Indians build an economy like this right now? And learn those lessons and implement, instead of let's take up a stance where we are fighting against these people. Yeah, as Balu said, as they're taking our jobs and their money, our women and all that. But what is it that they are better at that you can't defeat them? Okay, if you can't defeat them, then learn the skill.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so dope. I think really, if you have something so much, you end up in underestimating it. So what do you think the township has that a lot of people are underestimating? The ones in the township that they're not even using?
We have numbers. I think the first thing is numbers. We've got the numbers. And what are we doing with the numbers? Yeah, well, so if you were to go into different industries, for example, you go into the insurance industry, they've made millions out of the township because people listen to this thing that, it always fascinates me. When you look at, like, for an example, funeral policies, everybody, when they think of funeral policies, they think, okay, these people I'm paying 100 rands. It's such a small amount. Ne? It's such a small amount. But I know of a company that has 1 million members, right? And then calculate that 100 rands every month with 1 million members, and then calculate it yearly. And then you'll realize that you have the power of numbers. You don't realize that if we were smart enough or understand how much power we have, we'd understand that if in Katlehong alone, we can all contribute just 100 rands, we could take all our kids to schools. We could build all the factories and institutions we want. But we don't have that awareness. We all think we are poor, and we spend that 100 rand. Sometimes I'm not going to, blame people that drink and all of that, but we spend in those things with that mentality, with the whole mentality of, hey, we are poor, we are struggling, rough, but we've got 100 rands. And the last I checked, Katora's had close to 500,000 people. Now, I'm saying just 1 month, let's all contribute 100 rands out of 500,000 people. How much do we have? Yeah. We could start a scholarship fund for every kid. Every kid. I'm not talking, you can do the calculations yourself. If we were all to contribute like 500 rands, every household, just once off, no child will come out of these schools not having money to go to school. And using the same mentality, we could build whatever factory that we want. We could decide, okay, asiteng sunflower, I say, let's build our own factory. Asisateng ushukela, asisateng isinkwa sago, let's build a bakery. We could do that with anything. So the power of numbers. If you don't know your power, somebody else is going to exploit you. So the power of numbers is such that we blaming people that come from foreign countries and they open spaza shop in every street. Why? Why would they open every street? Because they know the power that there's numbers here, and these people always spend and spend, But if we could figure that out, that we've got the numbers, and that is the game changer. Business on its own, it's a numbers game. So if you understand that you've got the power, because you've got the numbers, you can do anything.
Wow. Yo, that's super dope. Which brings me to probably a conclusion that we need unity, Ekasi, in a way, in order to crowdfund and make a lot of things come to reality. So I don't know if now, do you know of maybe a couple of things we could do in order to unite people?
To unite people, people in their nature, they're very selfish. So most of the times when we want to come up with things where we unify, it's things where it's a cause that really, when a person sits down at home, thinks, but it doesn't benefit me. Yeah, but if I say to people, let's come up with something where we're going to crowdfund and take kids to school, and they sit down and they say, but I don't have a kid. you know. So I'd be taking someone else's kid. So we always, if you want people to come on board in whatever cause that you want to push, always think from their perspective. Think from how does it benefit them. If you say to them, listen, the first month we are going to renovate, we're going to start this fund. I'm just making a silly example. We are going to take this fund and we're going to renovate every house, you know, and then the person thinks, oh yeah, my house needs renovations. So I'm game. And then we say the second month we are going to take kids to school. Now this person has benefited. They don't have as much of a problem because now this thing they've seen results. But I think most of the time people cannot see where they're going to benefit. And there's a lot of people that when they start things, they are always thinking about how they, in the lead, how they can benefit. So we need a lot of selfless people. And then we need to make sure that when we bring people into doing something, we show them the benefit to their lives and how it can change their lives. I mean, every household here in the township, they know that we have a problem of job creation. And if you can show them that if we do this together, by next month, your child will be employed. I mean, the parents would wake up and follow whatever movement that you're preaching, but it has to be done right. You know, I mean, even the organization, how it's structured, it has to be done right with lawyers, with accountants. You can't just come and take people's money. You create a structure that you don't have access to the money, that it can help people. But I just think those are just some of my undeveloped ideas. You know, it still needs development, but I think it's possible. Not even I think, I believe it's possible, because where I come from, Nkulele Mngadi. So Mngadi, there was a time where all the kids there, we were like, man, makufika December sina mali, yabo, asikhona ukuyojiva, and you know, makufika December sifuna ukuzikhipha, singayenzani. We were all united in the same cause because we had the same problem. And we started like a society, a youth, and we all contributed money. End of the year, got the money, so spend wavele into any silly. But that tells you, the opportunity that is there, that if it can be done for the right things, it can benefit people. Right now, I know the Stokvel society industry is worth billions. And the banks know. You could just Google it and say, how much is the Stokvel society industry worth in South Africa? They'll tell you billions. And here's the thing. The billions go into the bank every month, every year. And then at the end of the year, all that money is taken out. And it's taken out for groceries. It's taken out for, you know, all sorts of things that don't really build people, you know, or build the economy of the township. And I think that's where the opportunity is. There are a lot of people that have already starting a Stokvel to build houses, starting a Stokvel to help each other in businesses. That's where the power is. If we can instill that in everyone, we can build a lot of great things.
Wow.
Yeah, instead of Themba starting a sneaker brand and he makes millions and he comes with a Porsche kasi, magavela, intswembu leyo, ibona ngePorsche, shaya umkhaba, semabrayini, engiyafika ngimpressa amajita nabo cherry. It really doesn't help anyone, it helps me. That's capitalism, vele, in its nature. But I do think we need to start thinking out of what the group economics, how can we help everyone else, not just me. It shouldn't help me only, yeah.
Oh, that's so dope. I have this fury in a way that the country is going to move to a technocracy. And it's not just democracy. So we're going to move to a technocracy where everything is controlled through technology, because this centralizing of authority to governmental what is not working. So what do you think it's going to work if we move into a society where we control everything with technology?
You know, I think in certain, it's going to move there, but certain countries or economies are ready for that than other ones. So when you look at Africa is like, whenever I look at Africa, because when you've gone outside of the country to like European countries or first world countries, something that you realize immediately is that we are always playing the catch-up game, you know. In everything, we are playing catch-up, you know. So I do think that will work. But in terms of where we are in South Africa, there's things that the societies or environments or situations where we are not ready to move to certain progress, like progressive stuff. For an example, I'm selling sneakers, right? And already my biggest struggle is there's a lot of people that want the sneakers and outside of Gauteng. They say, hey, Mtimbane, they reach me on WhatsApp, they call, they say, I love the sneaker, I want to buy it. And I say, okay, go online and purchase it online. Here's our website. No, I don't trust these things. I know, I can't do it. You don't have a store somewhere. I'm not shop. No, I'm gonna be in a shop. I'm not in a position to open in that area yet. I haven't made enough money. Or no, yazi Mtimbane ngizomela the day sozovula ngayi eMpumalanga then ngizoya ke. Then you can tell, but okay, these people they're not ready for that. So initially when we started VAYA, we were pushing it via online and online sales, but we could tell we were leaving a lot of money on the table because people are not ready technologically to adapt to this thing of I can purchase things online. So now we change our strategy to say we need a footprint, we need a retail strategy where we have our shops all over the country. So that's what we are pushing now, to have a lot more stores. But if you do the same thing at a first world country that's developed, that has a developed economy, then you find there that Amazon is the biggest company. And what does Amazon do? It sells everything. Online. But here, you sell a sneaker, somebody tells you, Themba, listen to the online. I don't trust them. It's because of the economy, the education, and all sorts of stuff that the people are not ready to move there. You know?
Yo, I'm imagining how difficult it is to run a sneaker brand, a sneaker company in a way. How difficult is it to break into the industry in a way?
You know, just to put things into context, in 2019, there was around, if I'm not messing up the figures, there was around 150 to 200 million shoes sold in the country. 200 million, not 200,000. 200 million. And most of them are sold by international companies. So if you were to see how many sneakers Nike sells in this country and how many sneakers Adidas sells and all of these multinational companies, they sell a lot of sneakers. So a majority of the sneakers that were sold in that year were coming from abroad. And there was like one industry player that was coming in that was new, that was black owned, which was Ipatune in that 2019, and it was selling a bit. But I remember checking the numbers, and I remember they were saying they were selling something like throughout the whole year they sold. If it wasn't even over 100,000, it was less than 100,000 that year. Now probably they sell more. But then take out 100,000 out of 200 million shoes. Then I'm just putting things into perspective, right? So yes, the industry is to get into it very easy. Why it's easy? You can go online, you can find search for a manufacturer, brand a shoe, start selling online, right? It's very easy. But then when you get into the real industry, where we're talking about, we are competing with brands that have 200 stores, that have a budget of 10 million in terms of advertising and marketing. So when we're talking of that industry, because now you have to like separate the two, because if you're selling online and you're selling 500 pairs, 200 pairs, you think, yeah, it's easy, it's the industry. But when you really get into the numbers game, into the bigger industry, you realize, we are just a drop in the ocean. We still need to put in a lot of work for us to even capture maybe 20% or 30% or even half of the industry. But I can tell you now, with VAYA, the experience I've had, I've been approached by so many of these big brands to say, come into our store. Let's put VAYA into our store. It tells you, Guti, they are seeing the value and they're seeing what we are doing and they're seeing that the future is here. Wow. This is the future. These guys are going to be the next Nikes. These guys are going to be the next Adidas. We better just take them on while they're still, coming up, so that later on we are not, taken out of the market by them. So it's not that hard to get into the market, but to break through into the big leagues, it's very hard. We are still trying to do that ourselves. But to just start, it's open for anyone.
Easy. Yeah, it's open in a way. And there's this thing I always come across it on social media that you don't need to open a big business if you don't have the stomach for it. So maybe it brings me to a question of what does it really take to have a big business in a way?
Oh, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. Why I would say that is because I'm learning as I go with myself. You realize that when you start playing in the bigger leagues, there are certain things that change. Like, for an example, when we started, we were just targeting black people that understand where we come from. Like, i-outsaseka understand intwana seka sicale isneaker yabo ithi support. That's who we were targeting. And when you start getting into the bigger industry, then they start telling you about market segmentations. Which there's certain group, there's certain markets, they respond to this, they don't respond to that, they respond to this. And you realize, oh, okay, now I need research. You know, if you want to build a big company, I need to have some research and understand who's my customer and what does he like or what does she like? Where can I find them? Then you start understanding what, okay, you don't just sell a product, you have to base it on insight. You know, if you want to go big, it has to be based on insight. Okay, why are you opening a store at Newtown Junction Mall? How many people, how many feet frequent that mall? And what's the age group? And what kind of spending power is it? What LSM group is it? And then you start understanding, okay, so you don't just open at a mall. You have to look at the numbers. You have to have the insights of who buys there and, you know, how much money do they have? Can they afford a sneaker that costs 1,200 rands? Can I open a Sontonga? Can I open? No, you have to have the insight why you should open a Sontonga, why you should open a Chrisan as opposed to a Sontonga. So now when you want to build a bigger company, you start understanding that it's not just, you can't wing it. You know, like when you start a business, you can wing a lot of things. But when it comes to a big company, you have to be very intentional and understand the different structures that are there that you need to set up for it to be a successful, you know, company. So I would say I'm also on that same journey. But what I've realized is you then need a lot of expertise. You need like people that are very good at marketing. I was telling you that we just signed with a marketing agency. You give it to them. You need accountants, you need lawyers, because now it starts being about, do you own this intellectual property? You can't just say a phrase, which is Sisonke, and you write it, and you find which someone went and trademarked Sisonke. And now, because you're a big company, you're going to be sued, and so when you start thinking from that big scale, you must know you need a lot of expertise and you need a lot of knowledge for you to build from that scale. Yeah.
Wow. There's this thing, Uguti, some entrepreneurs start a business and they want it to be big immediately. So do you think, okay, two things. Do you think entrepreneurs are allowed to do that, start a business and want it to be big immediately? And if that's so, can they partner with other people and give up shares so that those people can make their businesses big? Or should they go through the journey of trying to make it big so that they can learn every element along the way?
Now, okay, I'll answer it from my experience, right? I had a business that I built for, I think it was like 6 or 7 years. It took me around 6 years for that business to make $1 million in a year. It took me around, 5 years, 6 years for the business to make $1 million turnover in a year. It was tough. You know, you would make 300,000, then you grow. The next year you make 500,000. The next year you make 600,000, and then eventually you make $1 million in a year. But with VAYA, we did that in a couple of months. We didn't take a year to make $1 million. Ne? So what was the lesson for me? The lesson was I realized because of the era that we are living in, ne? We can't now. I know a lot of people, when you say something like this, a lot of people will say, but everything you must go step by step. It was step by step because the conditions or the environment forced you to do that. Because, for an example, I'll make an example. Back in the day, for you to take up an ad on a magazine that would reach 100,000 people, you had to pay anything between 70,000 to 500,000. I know this because I worked for a magazine. You had to pay 70,000 up to 500,000 actually, just to have an ad that will reach 100,000 people. They'll see it once. Ne? Today, you can put up 2,000 rands on Facebook. Today, namhlanje, like today in the morning, and by the end of the day, you would have reached 100,000 people. So that means the scale of growth would be different. So what took you months and years to raise up that 70,000 to advertise on a magazine. Today, you take 2,000 rands and you advertise to the same 100,000 rand, to 100,000 people. So the question then is, do you need to grow in the same scale that you would have grown at when those facilities were there? Or do you now realize, which, okay, actually the facility is there, you know, and the resources are there for me to grow faster than those people that used to do business back in the day. I mean, I used to do business back in the day when there was no Facebook advertising. And it was tough to just reach Ikatlehong, uyotoli advert KCR or KCFM. It was tough but now I can reach the whole of Katlehong just by targeting on Facebook and say, let me do targeting as Katlehong. I want to reach abantu base Katlehong, and in 1,000 rand I can reach them. Now, so I'm basically saying that the times allow for growth faster than back then. So you mustn't go into it usabambe ideology or ideology back then. No, business you must go step by step. Yes, there are things that you have to go step by step. But in terms of growth, because of the availability of the mass market, you can do it quicker because you can reach more people like a lot faster. What we are doing now was impossible. This is like owning your own media. This was impossible. I used to work for the media. For you to get a television appearance where you are speaking about your brand, what? And you don't pay.
Wow.
You had to pay millions. But now you can own your own media. You build your own podcast. It can build it up until it has subscribers and millions of people. So what does that tell you? It means that you can grow way more quicker than before. Now, answering your question on collaboration is very key because there's a lot of things that will take a lot of time if you do it by yourself. For an example, when we started VAYA, we didn't have a budget for influencers. We didn't have a budget for marketing, for advertising. We didn't have a budget for admin or accounting. But what I picked up very early was when you go on social media, there's a lot of people who are advertising, I'm doing admin services, I'm doing accounting, I'm doing this. And those are opportunities for collaborations because you can come up to that person and say, what do you need in your business that I can help with? And then in exchange, this is what I need. So meaning that you look at the value situation. So for an example, I can come to you and say, hey, I need your platform to advertise VAYA all the time. Whenever you do the podcast, it must advertise VAYA all the time. And then I say to you, do you know I was in the media, I can write press releases. I can do a copyright. Ne? So in exchange for you advertising my brand, let me do your copyright. Meaning everything that you write, your captions, your press releases, your bios, whatever, I can do them in exchange for you to advertise for me. And guess what that does? It helps both of us to move quicker towards our goals. Because now you know, this guy is going to make sure that I get coverage on newspapers. Because I'm a press releases, there's a certain type of the way of writing that will make a newspaper want to release your press release. Uthole when you've been sending to newspapers and about story saka baskavar, can't you not writing the way I'm a journalist are going to be inspired to push it. So I know those tactics. I can sell that to you and say, I know this, I've got this skill, gift. When you've got this platform, can we collaborate and we exchange these things? That is the power of collaboration. It's not just about money. It's about looking at what value do you have and what value do I have that we can combine, and then we use it for our advantage, both of us.
Value for value in a way. And that brings me to in assumption that as a person, if you are an entrepreneur and you know you don't have money, you need to build a value for yourself so that you are valuable. So that if I come to you and say, hey, Tintimban, I want to do this, I know I have some value that I can offer. Instead of always just asking. I think we need to close it down maybe with the last 3 questions, Nyana. Maybe number 1, what is the future of VAYA?
The future of VAYA is, for me, I see it, and I would love eventually for the whole world to see it that way. It's a brand that will tell the African story to the whole world. You know, It will tell the township story. It will tell the African story. It will tell Black people's story to the whole world. That we are using VAYA is a sneaker, but actually it's just what is in Islam, but it's just a catalyst, you know. It's something that it's leading you to something else. So it's leading you to understanding where we come from, what we're about, and what we represent, how we grew up, all of that stuff. So I see it as an international brand that represents Africans all over. So meaning that I would love to go to Paris and be able to move around the shops and I see VAYA, and, you know, go to Brazil, go to Hong Kong, go to India for that matter, you know, but see the brand. Why I say that is because I've been consuming American culture my whole life. I've been consuming European culture, even Chinese culture. You know, I've seen now there's leaning this brand, this Chinese brand, Themba Sneakers, and you know, there's your Adidas, your Puma, which is European. There's your Nikes, your Converse, which is American. But we don't have our own unique brands that we send out there to the world to tell our own stories. So I know Michael Jordan's story through Nike. I know Serena Williams. I know Tiger Woods. I know all of these stories. I know in terms of Adidas, I know Lionel Messi, those brands that they take and they promote. Now, we need to have like someone, you know, I'll make an example like who's very good at soccer right now, who's very like popular. Okay, I still know Utumele Nkune. You know, when Utumele Nkune, if he goes overseas and he represents us, he's wearing our brand, and they start knowing his story through our brand as well. I would love for VAYA to get to that stage where these African players, African athletes, African superstars, when they go and export Amapiano, or they go and export, you know, Afrobeat, they're wearing our clothes, they're wearing our brands, but they go out there and they're wearing Gucci and Louis Vuitton, and you're like, oh, I mean, they have that already there. I mean, those artists that side are already wearing Gucci and Louis Vuitton. So what are you bringing to the table? But it tells you of the gap of between us and the world, where we are not playing in that space where we are telling our own stories. Our artists actually feel very proud to take a picture in England or France rocking a Balenciaga or a Gucci because it makes them look successful. Wow. So you have to ask yourself, what is it about their marketing that they've made, someone that comes from South Africa that has an opportunity to take VAYA and show it off, but they would instead take Balenciaga? What is it that they did to that person's mindset that person is so proud to promote the Balenciaga story instead of the VAYA story? So I'm saying that's where I want VAYA to play at, to be able to export our own culture, our own language, and what we are about to the whole world.
Wow. I don't want to dilute that, but just the last question, Ninja. Maybe is there something you wanted to express that I didn't ask you about?
You know what? I've got a lot of opinions. You know, but the only thing I would say, you know, a lot of people when they see something like this, the question is, how can I do it? I want to start something. I want to build something. I want to be, you know, I want to succeed as well. And the question is, how did you do it? I think you asked that question in the beginning. And because of my own experience of life, of failing so many times, I've failed so many times in my life that I lose count if I have to start, you know, counting it. But I would say, very importantly, and I really have to stress this one, you know, Ogoti, you know, an orange tree doesn't eat its own fruits. You know, an orange tree doesn't eat its own fruit. So asiki sihlahla sama orange sidla ama orange, right? It produces fruit for others to enjoy. Yeah. You know, we are constantly want to build things that will benefit us all the time. How can I build something that's going to make me a millionaire? How can I build something that's going to make me, you know, stand out? That mentality is one of the reasons a lot of people don't progress, because it becomes frustrating if it serves you. You can imagine an orange tree that eats its own, fruits. It's the sun. The sun is there not for itself. The water is there. No, water doesn't drink itself, So anything, God is telling us one thing. He's telling us that anything created, it's created to serve something else. We have to say, how can I build something that can serve other people? And if we change that, if we change to that mindset, a whole new world opens up. A whole new world opens up, because that if I'm singing, it serves a purpose to someone. It brings joy to someone. If I'm dancing, the dancing is not for me. It brings joy to someone else. So it's not selfish. When it's selfish, it really restricts you in how far you can go, because in every opportunity that's going to come up, you're going to always say, how does it benefit me? How much money can I make? But guess what? Here's the secret. Anything that serves, like your power, okay, this is a better way to put it. Your power in life is in direct proportion to the amount of people that you serve. So people that serve a lot of people always have a lot of money.
It's a consequence.
Yeah. So basically your power... Think about anyone that is rich in the world, that is big in the world, and look at how many people they serve. And I'm talking, if it's a basketball player, how many people do that basketball player impact? And then you'll see how much do they have. So if it's a Messi, how many people Messi entertains? And then you, in direct proportion, see how much money then Messi has. So basically, the amount of people that you impact, so the amount of people that you impact really determines how far you're going to go as well in terms of your power. So as soon as possible, make sure that you serve as many people with whatever gift that you have. As a direct result of you doing that, then the power in terms of you benefiting then becomes easier. So I would say, VAYA, for an example, I'll make an example in VAYA. The reason we grew so quickly, whenever I remember I've done a lot of businesses. And in those businesses that I was doing, I would never get 50 messages a day saying, you inspire me. I like what you're doing. You've also made me want to start something. I would get that one message of a thank you from a customer that time. And the growth was the same. It was similar to the impact that I was having. But with VAYA, when we started, I think on the first day, I had over 500 messages saying, I love the brand. I love what you're doing. I love the thinking behind it. And I knew immediately that because of that impact, that kind of impact, the growth also will be quick, So if it serves a lot of people, it also gives you a lot of power. But if it serves you, if it's very selfish and it serves you alone, then I'm telling you, it's going to be frustrating. Even if you get a bit of power, but it's still going to be a power that frustrates you. So that's my parting shot. I would say, always start things because you are seeing something that you can add that is valuable to other people. Not because so that if it's that mentality, I know how frustrating that thing is. That journey will be frustrating from the beginning till the end. Always start from a journey of yini mina leng nayo that I can serve people out there with, or yini le that I can create, that I can start, that can serve people better. I know you've started I always look at your videos.
Wow,
and you are always sharing how people can grow their online presence, how they can build their brands and all of that. And I'm always thinking what you're doing, you're always on the right path. Whatever scale it's in right now, because you are serving these other people, and it's not selfishly, I want to grow my own. But if it's based on that, then it's going to be frustrating. But if it's based on genuinely, I want to help people grow their online brands and build. If it's genuinely like that, then you will invest a lot of times thinking, okay, what else can I do to help them? What else can I do? The more you do that, the more people will gravitate towards you in terms of helping you as well grow as well. So basically, that what I'm saying is, the more you serve, the more you're going to be served. And with you, it becomes triple, double. It's a principle. Remember we spoke about principles? Then it goes back to that principle. So I do believe that it's not because of my own power. Within 6 months, we opened a store in a mall. It was because of the amount of people that we were willing to serve with what we had. And as a direct result, people responded positively. So I do want to encourage people a lot, Guti, start from that position. Start from a position of serving. Don't start from a position of self-serving, where it serves you, and then you think you're going to make it. Start from a position of how can I serve people with my gift, with my skill, with my knowledge, and then see what happens again.
That's so impactful. Otherwise, if VAYA doesn't work, you need to be a teacher or a preacher. Like, you need to teach people as a profession. I think
no, thank you, man.
This was the last thing I wanted to ask you. Hopefully, we're going to have more conversations because there's just a lot to unpack from there. But otherwise, thank you very much for coming through, Manpuram Timbani. This was a very impactful conversation.
No, thank you, man.
As I said, this is ABC, Art, Business, and Culture, and we're just hoping to create conversations that bring value to other people. From me, Gifting Duma, and Timbani,
Makamo.
Makamo. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, man.
We out.